Getting to that first million invested is most entrepreneurs' ultimate first goal. It certainly was for me. But why is it the moment you get there, it gets all of a sudden easier and easier to grow to that next million and then that million after that? In this video, I'm going to reveal why and how you can get there quicker. Let's imagine for a moment you've won $1 million in the lottery and you immediately invest it in an index fund, the S&P 500, which is an index of the 500 leading publicly traded companies in the US. Since records began, the average annual return has been 9.9%. In fact, over the last 10 years, it's actually averaged about 10.2%, but let's assume it's 10% for ease and enter all that information into an online investment calculator. And we're going to assume that we're not adding anything to this $1 million that you've won each month. You're just going to put $1 million in and that's it. And we're going to be leaving it there and reinvesting any profits back into the index fund. After 10 years, based on a 10% return per year, that initial million would compound to just under $2.6 million. And if we look at how that is broken down, you can see how the amounts made each year just compound and compound and compound to $100,000 made in year one, which is obviously 10% of $1 million, to almost $236,000 being made in year 10, and a total balance of just under $2.6 million without doing anything. Literally all we've done is put $1 million into the S&P 500, and 10 years later, this is what it's produced. And in just over 7 years, it's actually doubled that million into another million. Hopefully, just looking at this data gets your mind ticking. The more the amount you've invested is actually generating you income, rather than you taking the time to make money traditionally in a 9-to-5 job. But let's look at these numbers differently. Let's imagine you hadn't won $1 million, but you'd actually spent your career building businesses and that you've sold one of those businesses after tax for $1 million. But as well as investing that $1 million, you're also going to invest an additional $5,000 every month. So over 10 years, an extra $5,000 a month basically totals an extra $60,000 a year, $600,000 over 10 years. How does this change things? What does that total of $1.6 million, that $1 million plus the $600,000 turn into? Well, it turns into just over $3.6 million. It adds $2 million to what you've invested. To add an additional million, it's taken just over 5 years. And then the second million, about 3.5 years. And this is how. Because each year, as well as the initial million compounding into bigger and bigger amounts, the extra $60,000 you're adding is doing the exact same thing. And the really shocking thing is if you did this not over 10 years, but over 20 years, you would end up with not 3.6 million, but just over $10 million, with the last million taking just over a year to produce. Your annual earnings from your investment would reach over $900,000 a year without doing anything. So I think I've labored this point enough, that in reality, money can be used as an asset to make you more money in the future, or it can be something you give away now in exchange for something you want now. And the trick to building wealth quicker is to treat it that way. So if you're wasting $1,000 a month on pointless stuff you don't need, don't think it's only $1,000 a month. Go onto this online calculator, type in $1,000 a month over 10 years, click calculate and watch how that $1,000 a month actually equates to over $200,000 10 years later, and get familiar with how that $1,000 a month achieved that by looking at the math. Or rather than thinking, why not spend that $50,000 to upgrade the car to something better, you type in that $50,000 into the calculator and realize, holy cow, that by spending that needless $50,000, I'm actually costing myself just under $130,000 in 10 years time, or worse, over $330,000 in 20 years time. I hope you get the point. If you're spending $1 today, it's actually costing you many times that the years in the future. Charlie Munger was the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, the investment company owned by Warren Buffett. Sadly, Charlie Munger passed away recently, but he left a personal fortune estimated well over $2 billion. He also helped Warren Buffett build Berkshire Hathaway into the 8th most valuable company by market cap in the world. Charlie Munger had some great advice to share to those starting their journey to building wealth. He said, saving that first 100,000 is challenging, but necessary. It's a bitch, but you gotta do it. He also went on to say, I don't care what you have to do if it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon. Find a way to get your hands on 100 grand. All the calculations I've taken you through, proving the power of compounding, is why Charlie reflects at the first 100K being so difficult to make. Literally after decades of having made not millions of dollars, but having made billions of dollars. So why is this video all about value compounding from $1 million rather than $100,000? Because Charlie Munger made that statement over 20 years ago, and $1 million is the new 100 grand, and 10 million is the new million today. See you in the next video.